Hi, everyone. I am excited to be back with you, bringing you news you can use, information, and inspiration to help you breathe easier, especially during these trying times. I am especially excited today because we are not just in the middle of a health crisis, but a wealth crisis. The financial markets and everyone's financial status has been thrown topsy-turvy by this global pandemic. And I have with us today to help us with this, Deborah Owens, also known as America's Wealth Coach. Deborah has had 20 years in the financial services industry. She's a veteran. She's formerly with Fidelity Investments as a vice president. She's a financial expert. She's an author. She's a media personality. I'm sure any TV network or station I could name, you've seen her on there, including NPR, TV One, CNN, ABC, and SiriusXM. She is an author. She's got 4 critically acclaimed books, and I'm going to talk to her about a couple of those once we start. But it is my pleasure to bring to you today, Deborah Owens, Wealth Coach. Wealth Coach, it is so great for you to be here. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, I'm excited to be here, Monique. I miss our time on News One Now. We used to chop it up pretty good.
Yes, yes, and I miss it too, but I am thankful that we had that time because that was my first introduction to you and just some of the words of wisdom and solid advice that you gave while I was blessed to hear it, but that you've been giving continuously for years and years and years is just a blessing to so many. And that's why I'm thankful that you are here today because as I was saying when I was speaking to Bishop Bronner out of Atlanta day before yesterday, these truly, Deborah, are the times that try men's souls. I mean, this is crisis upon crisis, and it's the type of thing where no area of our lives isn't touched and where no type of person, whatever the level of wealth or financial readiness, etc., isn't impacted. So I wanted to come to somebody who knows what she knows, to help guide us through these times, no matter maybe what our particular level was of readiness or lack of readiness beforehand. Is that okay?
Absolutely, and you're right. However, faith has to be tested.
Yes.
And if we call ourselves people of faith, this is when you have to rely on that. And it's so interesting that this is when I feel like I can serve. I've been prepared to serve the most.
Yes.
As someone who, I've been through several market crashes. In fact, my career started in 1987. That's how long I've been doing this with the stock market crash. And my first observation, though, was that I am from Detroit, and so my career started in Dearborn, Michigan, Ford country. And so as you can imagine, I'm at a Fidelity office in Dearborn, Michigan, and so many of our like average folk were factory workers. And at that time, it was a kind of a bubble in that people were buying stock and they were seeing the market go up really fast. And so as you can imagine, you get a false sense of security, very similar to, what was happening pre-corona. And so you begin to think, oh, well, anybody can invest. I can just make money. And then that was at that time, other than the Depression, the largest decline in one day, which is 1,000 points, which doesn't seem like much then, but then the market was only 3,000-4,000.
Right.
And so I say but the other thing that I observed was while that market went down, and when all day we would be taking calls from people, get me out of the market, get me out of the market. And yet I was training under who was then probably the first African-American account executive. And I would stay late at night and I would see some of our wealthiest clients come in but they were not selling, they were buying. And then our trades would go over a pneumatic tube, and I would look at those tickets, and they were all buys of blue chip stocks that they felt like were overvalued, and now because everyone was selling everything. And so my first thought when I got into this industry was, oh, wealthy people do the opposite of what most people do. And that's
Say that again, Deborah.
Wealthy people do the opposite of what most people do.
Yeah.
And so, you know, think about it. And I don't want to sound rote or cliche, you know, stocks are on sale. It's not stocks are on sale. It's that some stocks are good values, right?
Right. So, okay. And I want to put a pin there because we're going to get there, because I think that really is going to have to be the advanced part of our conversation. And here's the reason why I say that. Starting from the beginning, I saw when I enjoy sometimes your tweets and your responsive tweets, because a few weeks ago when everybody, maybe that's been a month now, when everybody first got in the big freak out,
yes,
whoa, what is happening? You were kind of like, whoa, calm down. It'll come back up. Don't freak out. This isn't the end of the world. Been here before. It's the same, but it's different, and etc. And I know, just as you finished saying, that's because you've been through things, maybe not this exact, but like this before, and that I've been doing these for businesses and entrepreneurs, these webinars. And one of the things that I said, and there were like maybe 5 women in there who had been in business for a long, long time, and they started cracking up laughing when I said it, was the reason why we don't panic when the bottom drops out is because, I mean, the world has ended and started again for small business owners and entrepreneurs at least 3 times.
Yeah.
They're not even in business. I mean, there's just no way to stay in it over time with longevity without taking hits, without taking losses, without downturns, without bad seasons, without times when clients are booming, with times when you can't find a client. I mean, that is what it's like to be working for yourself. But there are people who are listening right now who were working in great jobs for the federal government, you know, and not just starting out, who are 5-year, 10-year, 20 years from their early starting date and are like inches away from retirement, who have had to watch what they thought was savings and nest egg and doing all of the things the right way go down to nothing. And then there are people who were just starting out and it didn't even have an opportunity. Like, if they could have been to all of your Wealthy You meetings, they would just be at step 1. And yeah. So when you start talking about what the points are doing and what stock market's doing, it's like, I mean, they have no idea what you're talking about. Can you tell us, for people who are there, for people who are just starting out, no real savings to speak of, doing their best to hold down a job, and now the job is either gone or on hold, are there steps toward wealth for the point that they are in now?
Absolutely, because they have the one thing money can't buy, and that's time. But what is required? Okay, what is required is to pivot. I have this conversation in our Wealthy You community I've been on every night since this happened. I'm in my 4th week, just taking questions. And the truth is, it is time to see the possibility in the volatility. So what do I mean?
Okay, wait. I'm taking notes, but I know everybody else is. It's time to see the possibility in the volatility.
Right? So it's really about your perspective. So the first thing I told the people in my community, hey, it is batches down. It's basic essentials. Okay. So, you know, I'm not going to get deep, but think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, we're at ground 1. If you've taken a basic psychology course, it's, you know, my safety, my food, and my shelter.
Yes.
Okay. So if that is true, then we got to batten the hatches, let's, what are you doing with this stimulus check? Well, everything is about cash reserve and liquidity right now. Okay. Right. And so you got to have your basic needs taken care of. And so your focus at this point is, if you get an inkling that your job is in jeopardy, your finances are in jeopardy, you've got to make a shift and pivot and begin to think about what are those companies now that are hiring, right? Who are now going to benefit from this economic volatility. And there are many companies, right? And yes, many of them are doing business virtually. Amazon, in fact, one of our Wealthy You members who's in our inner circle, she heard what I said. And then our next coaching session, she was like, Deb, I've got this offer here, right? She went right online, applied. She said, Deb, I couldn't even believe it. I'm on, so we're on the call just like now. And then the phone rings, it's the recruiter. And she's like, Deb, I'll call you back, right? Calls me back. Of course, they give her kind of lowball her offer. And so we start talking about strategy, making sure that you anchor high so that you can come down, so that's what I want.
That's strategy with an offer, which means she went like within a day from strategy to getting an offer to strategy of how to handle an offer.
She took action. Yeah. Right? And so that's the point. That's my lament in my community. I'm coming here, I'm telling you, apply for that unemployment. I'm telling you to apply for that economic industry disaster loan. I'm telling you to apply for that grant. If you have
wait a minute, hold on, I'm sorry. And I know that I only have you for a little while, but you are dropping so much stuff. Before we get off, guys, Deborah's gonna tell you how you can follow her, how you can get in the outer circle, the inner circle, the VIP circle, so that you can get so much more than what she's graciously giving us. But I can't pass up the nuggets. You said you're telling people to apply for that economic relief, even if it's a loan. Why is that not dangerous?
Because loans this money is so cheap, right? Yeah. And so one of the things I've been talking about are there are two sides to this economic stimulus. Okay, the one side is the Fed putting more money in the supply, so getting money in businesses' hands so that they can pay their employees and stay in business, right? Yeah. The other side of that really is Fed moves, right? And those Fed moves are lowering interest rates. So interest rates are nearly zero. The loans that they are giving out are like 3% in 30 years. Okay, yeah. So if you've got other debt or anything like that, you can refinance that debt at a much lower rate. You need to be calling your creditors right now and saying, what can you give me? Can you give me 90 days? Can you extend my payment? This is
people would be surprised. The businesses are poised to do that because they know something is much better than nothing. Absolutely. And that if they're working with people, then they stand a chance to get the something. I mean, and that comes down to anything. That's your Verizon wireless bill. That's your cable. All the way up to rent and mortgage to business expenses, etc. There really is, even though I think, I'm looking to see what this next level of the stimulus package is going to be.
And not only that, banks are getting money almost for free to lend. Yes. Okay, so get your money. Get
your money. Yes, ma'am.
Get your money. Our mindset in our community, we're buying into that. We can do it on our bootstraps. Other people don't have bootstraps. They don't do that. They have an economic advantage. And so I want us to take every economic advantage we can. And
others, even their bootstraps are different. I was just reading just an older post that Elizabeth Gilbert, the one Eat, Pray, Love, the author, had written, and I so appreciated it because she said it took an awakening for her to realize that what she thought was building herself up on her own her entire life, had white privilege baked into it from the very beginning.
Well,
And so
absolutely, but
community,
that's what privilege is. It's
yes,
invisible, right? You
yes,
don't even know you have it. And so
yes,
my point is, folks aren't giving us anything. We are on the front line. You walk in any retail store, who's there? Black women. Hold
yes.
it down. You know, you go into one of those the large box stores. Who's there? People of color holding it down.
Yes.
And now we're considered essential workers. And so now we're out there on the front lines, and people wonder why the mortality rates are higher. Girl, don't get me going on that. Okay. So
you'll have to come back so we can talk about that
right.
And entirely separately, because they're all hand in hand. But I get your money, and I understand much better already. I have clarity about some of it. But here's the other piece that I'm wondering, still again, for the people who maybe have a job but don't have a lot of savings, or no savings, but let's say they know, at least for this round, their job is secure. Deborah, they're now saying that even when we start to be able to open up the country and the economy again, that we may have another round of this before the vaccine is ready, because we may clamp it down this time, and by early of 2021, early spring of 2021, we may be back here. What can people be doing in terms of, you know, instead of going back to some business as usual where they're living like fully extended or almost fully extended?
So you know what, like my mother was born in 1929, the year of the Depression. And if you recall, their whole mindset was different in terms of frugality, and people were like, oh yeah, they came up in the Depression. That now that's how we're gonna be impacted. So let's be clear. We're not going back to the way that it used to be. Yes. Our lives have fundamentally changed.
Yes.
And so what we have to understand is that we have to have a cash reserve cushion. Now, come on, we've been in this house. I know you've been in this house, and you know, my husband, he's the one who goes to the grocery store. I'm like, no, I'm not going out there. You know what, boo, you got that. My point is that we really see now what's important. Yes. You know, all of the ancillary things that we thought were of value are of no real value. And so as we move forward, what we have to make sure that we are doing is being frugal and saving our coins, right? Saving our coins. Right. So, you know, when financial advisors used to tell us, oh, you need a year of expenses, boom. Okay. And so that's, but the other
and I've heard you say that so many times. You know, I mean, you and I have had side conversations, and then we've been on shows at the same time. And it really is, to me, one of those things where I can see now why my parents' mentality made so much sense. When I was growing up, couldn't really understand it. As I had children, made more sense to me. But they had seen things that now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, Lord Jesus. And the thing about it is, in talking to them now, I mean, my mom texts and I said, do you need anything? Can I send you anything? Do you need something for groceries? She said, we are fine. We're in our staycation.
Because their cupboards are already stocked. They've got dry goods. They have beans. They know how to make,
and they have money.
Yeah.
I mean, they lived the whole time wanting to live as long as possible, as comfortable as possible, which meant just not doing anything high off the hog. And so now it's like, well, we're just gonna keep doing what we've been doing, Monique.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And so that is, you know, so that's what peace is, right?
Yes.
However, the one thing I can say about what we're going through now is what we begin to understand, that our health is our wealth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Our health is our wealth.
Yes, because then it gives you what you just said earlier, the time.
Yes.
You know, because time sick is not time. And so, and that's why there's a real difference. I've been, you know, I got to tell you, honestly, sometimes it feels like guilt, you know, and I've been talking to people about it because I'm in a house with healthy people. My parents are healthy and without needs. And I see so many people in lack in so many areas. Not that we got everything all figured out on the money tip, but every single opportunity to move from here forward and do better. And there are so many now who can't, but I'm still wanting to offer information like what you're giving today, because if you are right now listening and in good health, you know, and ultimately employable and not having to be worried about a loved one that's in the hospital, this is hammer time. I mean, you need to be on strategy after strategy.
And it's a blessing too, right? And
yes.
So what I want to say is now is your time to serve. And
yes.
It is through serving and creating value to other people that your needs will be taken care of. You know, people ask me now, I just had a friend, Deb, how are things doing? I says, you know, oddly enough, I'm busier than I've ever been.
Yes.
You know, and so this is what I want folks to understand is you have to pivot. Now, you know, I feel grateful, and a lot of my work was already been doing virtually, not only with on the side of my my individual customers, but also corporately. And so even those clients who wanted to, who I normally would go into their workplaces, now more than ever, there is a high level anxiety around the economy for even their employees. And so now that same content is being delivered virtually, right? And so that's what I want folks on this, listening to this to understand. It is time to pivot, right? And so old things have fallen away, and I need your focus now to be on what's the shift that we're gonna need to make? Where are the needs going to be? If I am, how can I shift and bring things virtually? I have friends who were manufacturing makeup who are now doing sanitizers. I have friends who were bringing things back from African garbs. They're making masks. So I want you to think much more creatively about now in this environment, where is the greatest need? And how can you pivot to where that great need is? And whether it's working for a company, whether it's a side hustle that you can do on your own, what are the things that you can do to really shift so that you're on the right side? The people who come out of this the strongest are the people who pivot and don't panic, right?
Pivot and don't panic.
Okay, yeah. Pivot and don't panic. Because what pivoting requires is for you to be thoughtful, for you to be observant, right? So, you know, I'm from Detroit, so we have the big Red Wings, the hockey, you know, hockey's big in Detroit. But, you know, one of the greatest scorers of all time was Wayne Gretzky. And he said, people were like, well, how did you make all those scores? And he said, oh, well, I never looked at the puck. I looked at where the puck was going.
Woo!
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that's what I want our folks. We have such a tendency to be caught up in fear. Now, you know, one of my inner circle clients said last night, because I've been online, she was, you know, just absorbing all of this. And she said, yeah, she said, you know what? People with a poor scarcity mindset buying toilet paper. People with a wealth mindset are buying Kimberly-Clark. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it is a shift in terms of thinking, but that is what the thinking requires. Yes. Requires you to get out of your fear and really be thinking about how can you serve. And it's when you serve and create value of and solve problems that people are having, right? So totally, you know, I was watching CNBC, and don't hold that against me because it's something that I do. But I was watching this interview, and this guy had been making robots who were going into hospital facilities, and they had UV light, and they could sterilize and disinfect with this UV light. So the robots go in, Mayo Clinic's a big clinic. And so he says, now the demand is so great now, right? But he knew that at some point, pathogens were no longer going to be something that these environments will be able to do work in. So, right. So they had already created the technology. Now it's in demand. Now, I was online looking at, can I buy their stock? So that's the point that I'm saying. Now you have to be able to serve in a greater capacity. And in order to do that, you've got to be looking at those problems. I was making fun last night. I was talking about, I'm ready for the Jetsons. I'm ready for the little jet to come up to my house, me get in my little private bubble where I don't have to have, go. But now what's happening is this kind of disruption, right? We went through a tectonic shift. We will never be the same. How we think, like all of y'all had your tickets going to Essence Festival. Trust and believe. If they open up Essence Festival, Deborah Owens will not be there, right?
No, and it's canceled.
But even a year from now,
yesterday said, and a lot of people were not just planning to attend, but like I had speaking things, there was all, and I had told my cousin really weeks ago, I said, I'm calling now and canceling my hotel reservation because I just know that's not where we are.
I want you to think about that. So I want to take it up a notch, and I really want to, I was talking to one of my advisors just around how can we serve my corporate clients in particular in a different way. Where is my virtual delivery going to go? And he was like, Deb, I want you to think of virtual reality. And I want you to think of the fact that we'll be able to get to a point where you'll think you're sitting next to someone because their image will be there in 3D, but you won't. So it'll give you that feeling of being with camaraderie and being with your coworkers, but you're not there.
Yeah, we're living hologram lives is where we're headed.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
So I just, don't be afraid, okay? Don't be afraid, right? Look into this and see where are the opportunities going to be.
Well, and I know you've got a heart out in like 2.5 minutes, so real quick.
I'm good. She extended, so we can keep going.
Oh, I feel grace and favor already.
Yes, you do.
So then let's pivot to the category of people who are already involved in one way or another in investing and are trying to figure out whether they belong in the category that are looking for opportunities to buy or whether they're in the category that should be like, whoa, Nelly, let me just stay right where I am and wait till all of this stuff that I watch disappear comes back. How without someone like you, can someone figure that out? Or is the real answer that they shouldn't be doing it on their own right along?
No, absolutely not. I mean, this is not rocket science. That's why I started Wealthy You, because if you don't have $500,000, people don't want to give you the time of day. And so what is really, really important, we focus on first generation investors. I mean, I didn't come from wealth, and had I not picked this as a career, I wouldn't know what I know. And then I realized that, hey, I could write all the books that I wanted, give all the workshops that I wanted, but what we needed was for somebody to take the journey along with us, give us the tools. So basically what I want to say to a couple of conversations that I'm having right now. One, I just wrote an article on Sisters AARP that just dropped yesterday. And it talks about savvy money moves for turbulent times. So the first thing I want to say is, and this is going to be counterintuitive, but for many people, it's time to up the amount that you're putting in your 401k. If you're more than 10 years away and you're investing systematically, then now's when you're going to get these assets at much cheaper, and it is going to bring down your average cost. All right. But everything ain't for everybody.
Right.
Okay. So on the other hand, for the people who are nearing retirement, 5 years away from needing to access that money, then what this really gives you an opportunity to do is to review and reevaluate. Okay, so the market since 2011 has gone up. And so many people have kind of been on automatic pilot and didn't realize that they were so exposed to stock, right?
Mhm.
And so for them, what's important is that they reduce the mutual funds that are, too volatile and exposed to stock. Because my personal feeling, I don't have a crystal ball, but it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Okay. And so if we go into what is a true recession, and I don't think many people have lived through one, I certainly have, I was quite young, but if this is a true recession that is extended to maybe 5 years or more, you can't afford to ride this thing down, right? And so for them, what is going to be important is that they begin to kind of reduce the amount of their investments. And I have a great tool on my website right now. If they go to deborahowens.com, right on it is the investor risk profile. How much of your money should you have in the stock market? And just by answering a few questions, it'll give people a real sense of, how much they should have based on where they are in their current stage, if you will. The other point I want to make, though, and something that I've been encouraging people in our community to do, because one of the things we do is they learn how to actually analyze and research stock, right? And so now is the time to be looking at, like, we've been researching a lot of what we call stay-at-home stocks, stocks like Zoom, right, that we're using right now.
Yeah.
DocuSign, okay, which is a way of getting signatures, certified signatures on documents. Before, with the closing, you buy a house, you could get all that by DocuSign, but when you went to close, you had to meet in person. That is going away, right? Slack is another tool that's really gained more usage. It's a kind of a messenger system for organization that, rather than you having all this stuff in your email box, everybody can follow along based on kind of topics and hashtags. So there's some really, really cool opportunities out here that, to my point, right, see the possibility and the volatility. Now is when you need to be thinking about not just what is that demand, what are people using, but also what are the companies that are producing those products and services and investing in it as well.
Wow. Okay. And that was a mouthful. But I want people to go to DeborahOwens.com, and it's going to be in the caption. Just look in the caption right below this video to find all of the ways that you can follow the wealth coach. And since we got a couple more minutes, I just want to talk about women. Because I know that you've written extensively and coached extensively for what it means for women to have their own purse. What's the name of the book?
Absolutely. The name of the book is A Purse of Your Own.
Yes.
An Easy Guide to Financial Security.
Yes.
And the fact is, it's just so interesting. I watch I'm always watching what our women are watching, right? And so it's so interesting to see how many people are watching, like Real Housewives of Atlanta, Beverly Hills. None of those women are married, right? And so, do I, even though, and it's just so interesting to see how they're still trying to convey that, somehow there's still this, if you just find that right person, your financial, you will have financial peace. And that couldn't be further from the truth. The truth is, though, is that women are responsible for 90% of the buying decisions in households. The fastest growing segment for women of color in terms of incomes is 150,000 plus. I didn't say biggest, but growing.
Right.
And so, a lot of the work that I've been doing is what I call my Black girl magic work. And that's how to take that brilliance, right, and that resilience, and turn it into wealth. And so that really is my passion. I think so often I'm a Black woman, and I find that with the, I've coached hundreds of women, and the biggest shift they have to make is to understand that the best thing they can do for their family is to make sure that they have their financial house in order. I mean, because then your children aren't going to worry about you caring for you, right? And you're going to also be such, as I am for my own daughter, role model for them. And so they're watching you, right? Every step of the way. So let's make sure the model that we are giving them is one of resilience and self-sufficiency.
Wow. Oh, this has been so, so good. Can you tell me what's the difference between wealth and having money?
Oh, there's a difference between wealth and income, right? Mm-hmm. And so I love to describe it in this way. Okay. So poverty, people with a poverty mindset think and manage their money day to day. People with a poor mindset think and manage their money week to week, that paycheck to paycheck living. People with a middle class mindset think and manage their money month to month. And if you think about it, we're even sold products and services based on how much we can afford monthly. People with an affluent mindset think and manage their money year to year. They have a budget, right? And they've allocated their resources. But people with a wealth mindset think and manage their money generation to generation. That's the only difference is time. And when you begin to make decisions about the impact that you're going to make on the next generation, which is what we just talked about, modeling, then you're going to make a different decision.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just wanted everybody, I've heard it before, but I wanted everybody to hear it. And that is so true. Well, listen, guys, you've just heard from the Wealth Coach, and I don't have to sell you on her. You know exactly why you should be going to DeborahOwens.com. And then where can they find you on Twitter?
So they can find me on Twitter at Deborah Owens. On IG, I am Deborah Owens. And so we give tips out. Join our Wealthy You community on Facebook, just Wealthy You community. You have to answer a couple of questions, and you'll come in and you'll see women are rocking and rolling. I learned just as much as that community as I give. And so that's really what it's about. You know, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And that's what the Wealthy You community is about.
Well, thank you so much, Deborah. I appreciate it. Promise me you're going to come back. We have so much else that we have to talk about.
Yeah, because you talk with entrepreneurs, and I'm an entrepreneur as well. And so we have some really unique opportunities that I don't think we fully exploit. And we can definitely talk about this stimulus bill.
Yes.
Because that's what, folks, they don't get it twisted. There are some things you need to know and you need to leverage. And you got to do it quickly because there is only a limited amount of money. Once that money's gone, it's gone.
Well, we are going to set that up, and we're going to set that up as a webinar, and people are going to have to jump to it and get it, but I'm going to schedule it right away. Thank you so much for your time and just for being who you are. You're a treasure, and I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, Monique. Thank you so much.
Take care.
All righty.